This is a short presentation of the theme details in art. This image represents the biblical story of God creating Adam, the first man. It has become the most famous detail from the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican. Perhaps this is because it conveys intimacy and power, even though it is a moment imagined by the artist. The strong contours showing the anatomical details of the hands and arms is because it was needed to be seen from a distance. The whole ceiling is laid out in segments showing different biblical moments, overwhelming in the number of stories and the detail captured. The entire chapel is painted with frescoes which illuminate the majesty of God. Nature and mankind is shown in idealized forms to create a sense of God's almighty world. It takes hours to view properly. This portrait by Angus has lots of carefully observed, precise and fine detail. Observe the painted floral design on the folds of the dress and the reflection in the mirror showing the back of the head. The composition of the figure was inspired by a fresco he had seen on his travels, in particular the detail of the hand touching the face, which adds a small movement to this otherwise still moment. The Lady of Shalott is the subject of this painting by John William Waterhouse. It uses precise details and the clear colours typical of pre-Raphaelite painters to illustrate the story. Notice how this detail moves in and out of focus from the foreground to the background, and along with the rhythmical pattern of the water, foliage and fabric, leads the eye around the picture. Edouard Vuillard's colourful decorative paintings are the next two images. He favoured interior scenes of home, populated by his mother and sisters. These domestic scenes take the loose, broken, expressive brush marks and vivid colour palettes explored by Impressionist and Post-Impressionist artists and pushed them to an extreme. Like many artists at the end of the 19th century, he was influenced by art from other parts of the world, specifically Japanese prints. These revealed to artists different possibilities of representation within a picture. The result in Vuillard's paintings is form gets lost and found amongst playful patterns and the picture plane gets flattened. Is that part of a dress or is that part of the wallpaper, for instance? Ambiguity wins. A founding member of the Impressionist movement, Monet was interested in painting light. He made about 250 paintings of water lilies, with early ones showing the whole pond and bridge from his garden in Giverny. This subject matter was the main focus of his work in the later part of his career. As the series developed, his focus became the water lilies on the surface of the pond, a detail of the landscape that became increasingly abstract as the scale of his paintings grew bigger. In this picture, Monet himself allows us to appreciate the large size of the paintings. As the works get bigger, so does the mark making. The brush marks describe the swirls of water and foliage of the water lilies, the details falling in and out of focus so that we're not too sure if we're being asked to look at a water lily pond or an abstract painting. If Monet anticipated the modernist move towards abstraction, then Beatrice Millasy's work builds on its legacy. Dazzling, intricate patterns that reference multiple pop culture and serious art elements, both of her native Brazil and the wider world, she combines fine details of pattern, colour and shape on painted surfaces that do not aim to recreate what the world looks like, but gives the viewer an experience or sensation that connects to life. The next two images are by Patrick Caulfield. Many of his paintings utilise contrasting types of detail. Again, we are looking at interiors and areas of space, marked by the use of pattern, colour and line. Simplified patterns and line describe the space. Where light hits the table, extra details and colour is added. The labels on the bottles are painted photorealistically and our attention is drawn to them because of the contrasting styles. Here we see a similar play of contrasts. How does Caulfield create a harmonious painting using two different styles? Well, there are several aspects of continuity within the picture. These include the rhythm of the shapes created by line, perspective and colour. For example, he uses the same blue hues throughout. The only real difference is the level of fine detail painted to create a photorealistic effect of the lake versus the interior space. The contemporary artist Dan Hayes takes the visual language of digital photography and explores not the detail of the real world it depicts, but the minute detail of how a digital photograph is formed. He exaggerates the pixels. The resulting effect flattens the picture plane and dissolves form. They become pattern-like and fuzzy, like waiting for a download to complete or looking at a low-resolution image or glitches in the process of printing an image. Federico Bambina has made a series of 27 drawings that combine architecture and fine art. He tried to imagine what a house designed by famous artists like Dali or Roy Lichtenstein might look like. Here is the one he imagined, combining Lichtenstein's comic book style and block colour schemes with a modernist-style house on stilts. John Piper's atmospheric watercolour paintings of architecturally important buildings include this painting of Holcombe Hall in Norfolk. Expressive brush marks and colours capture the feeling of a place, and the close attention to detail in the buildings shows a respect for architecture and the history of each place he paints. When this painting was made around 1740, photography did not yet exist. Paintings like this one by Canaletto of the Grand Canal in Venice were brought by wealthy European travellers at the time to commemorate their trips and experience. Canaletto's close attention to detail captures the architecture, atmosphere and characters that made a place unique. This use of perspective and scale of the painting all help us to feel that we're there in Venice. Still Life with Lemons and Olives, painted in 1628 by Peter Claus, has painstaking attention to details. Accurate naturalistic drawing, observation of colour, and light and dark are all part of this. High contrast lighting helps the objects pop off the page, detailed, minute reflections with pinpoint highlights that reveal surface texture, and once again we are there with the subject of the painting and can smell lemons and hear the faint tinny sound of a glass rocking on the table where it's just fallen. Joseph Cornell's work also uses objects and close attention to detail. Here we see a piece called Untitled (Celestial Navigation), made between 1956 and 1958. He collected found objects and presented them in boxes, like 3D collages. They often have the look and feel of museum pieces. This is Mimo Rotella's large-scale collage called With a Smile from 1962. In the early 1950s, Rotella began to rip posters away from the walls of outdoor hoardings in Rome and use them to create elaborate collages. He used one detail of the city where he lived and developed it into large, complex collages and paintings. This drawing of a still life is by Keith Vaughan. It is made from graphite and on paper. The lines are bold and sculptural, describing shape and form rather than light. Traditional in subject for a still life, it is an observational drawing of what is available to the artist. The shading describes the plane of each object and reduces the detail to that which is necessary to describe the object in space. I'm finishing with more hands. These are by the French artist Auguste Rodin. His ability to render stone and bronze into intimate human moments echoes that of Michelangelo. Whose hands are these? Are they about to embrace, or are they uncoupling, waiting forever to touch, or leaving each other behind? Just one small part of a larger whole, telling a whole myriad of stories and revealing layers of possibilities. You should now have a sense of the range and uses and opportunities to explore in the theme of details.